$24 million from Portland and LA next season. Elsewhere, the Knicks are expected to hire former Kings coach Mike Brown. Spencer Dinwiddie is on his way to Charlotte on a one-year deal, and Dante Exum has agreed to a one-year deal with the Mavs. Dave Deckard from Blazers Edge is going to join me on the Rip City Drive today at 3:20. Dodgers host the White Sox tonight. Clayton Kershaw gets the start. He is 3 strikeouts away from 3,000 in his career. He'll become the 20th pitcher in history to reach that milestone and only the 4th left-hander. Mariners host the Royals tonight as they continue to flounder. 7 games back in the West. 6:40 first pitch from T-Mobile Park. Logan Gilbert gets the start for Seattle. I would recommend you don't watch the game. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doings coming up next.
It's time for the Rip City Drive, brought to you by Goldberg Jones. Divorce for Men. Call 1-800-DIVORCE. Featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Doing.
He swings. It's a high drive to right field. Way back it goes, and this ball is gone! A home run! Shohei Ohtani with a blast! His 30th of the season! Strike 3 call. Bonda strikes out the side in the 9th. And the Dodgers take game 1 by a 6-1 score.
Would you still rather have Luka over Cooper Flagg?
Man, give me Cooper Flagg.
Really?
Cooper Flagg and this team, yeah, give me Cooper Flagg, man. You're talking about a team, when they're healthy, got 3 future Hall of Famers with Kyrie, AD, and Klay Thompson. So this is really exciting. The Mavericks, their future is bright.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
Boy, someone needs to tell Avery Johnson to settle down. Does Nico Harrison have compromising photos of Avery Johnson? Oh, yeah, I'd rather have Cooper Flagg. Look, here's the bottom line with Dallas. They were either incredibly lucky, like they hit a lottery, the Powerball in the NBA lottery with Cooper Flagg, or it was rigged by the NBA after they gave Luka to the Lakers to help the league out. One or the other. But this whole idea that Nico Harrison had a plan and that you needed to trust the plan and now you can see his vision come together, it's total nonsense. It's so much bullcrap. It's like listening to a politician, like Congress, try to defend something. I get so sick of this type of nonsense. It's like, Nico, you traded Luka and got 1 first-rounder in return. There was no plan there. You had no assets to rebuild your team, you idiot. And somehow you got this act of God and got Cooper Flagg in the lottery. Either it was rigged or you were incredibly lucky. But that does not mean because of your great fortune you had a plan. Please shut up. Just you know what? Can't you just be happy that you somehow lucked out and got Cooper? Shut your mouth and get on with your basketball team. But quit trying to justify the trade. It was a bad trade. You do not trade a top 5 NBA player and get 1 first-round pick in return at his age and try to tell us that defense wins championships. That's such a pathetic line, you moron. All right, coming up on the show today, Dave Deckard at BlazersEdge.com is going to join us coming up at 3:20. So many different things I want to talk about with him because I haven't spoken with him since all the madness went down. I want to get his take on the Drew Holiday trade involving Anthony Simons. I want to get his take on the draft selection of Young Hansen. And I want to get his take on Dame. After the Milwaukee Bucks, and by the way, you want to talk about a dumb franchise? At least they're not like Nico trying to tell us that they have a plan and you need to trust the process. Hopefully they don't do that. The Milwaukee Bucks are morons. Who on earth just sets $22.5 million on fire every year for 5 straight years? And who on earth thinks that somehow going to Giannis and saying, hey, you need to stick with us. We don't have a plan, and we're now $22.5 million in the hole with our cap for the next 5 years, but you can trust us to build a winner. What are the Bucks doing? No one has ever stretched out that much money. It's lunacy. You have to be a real buffoon to do that. And I love it when players pretend like they had no idea it was coming. Like, I love Giannis. I think he's a cool dude, and he's a great franchise cornerstone. But he has to come out and fake that he was shocked by the move and that he's upset they traded Dame. That's not how the NBA works. Do you actually think that they made that move to waive Dame and stretch out his contract for 5 years at $22.5 million per year without running that by Giannis first? Of course they didn't. They ran it by him and got his okay because they're trying to make sure that he's happy. They want him to remain with Milwaukee and be a Buck for life. There's no way they're making that move without running it by him first. So, of course, they went to him, but he has to come out and play the whole game of, oh, I had no idea. I can't believe they traded Dame. I'm upset. Yeah, sure you are. That's why they came to you ahead of time and ran it by you, and you gave the okay. So it's all a game. It's all a big act, and the Bucks are crazy. You don't stretch out $22.5 million to bring in Miles Turner when they could have signed Brook Lopez. I mean, Brook Lopez is not the same player as Miles Turner, but it's not that big of a difference. So they probably saved about $14 million in the process. They went out and got Miles Turner. They have no plan. It's just amazing to me. You know, these franchises, I have no idea who came up with that one. Who were the ad wizards that came up with that one? So the Bucks are dumb, but Dame, he did hit the lottery. And he made that comment. Dame's got to be happy. It's like, wait a second, you're going to waive me so I get to leave that situation and I can spend more time with my kids, and you're going to pay me $22.5 million a year for the next 5 years. And, oh, by the way, I'll become a free agent, and I can pick whichever team I want to play for? Sign me up for that. I need to. I'm going to find a way to become like a bought-out college football coach or bought-out NBA player and have like, and I'll try to get fired too, and have like 4 or 5 teams that are paying me all at the same time. But the Milwaukee Bucks, they treat their salary cap like our politicians treat the national debt. Well, what is it now? $36 trillion? Oh, what the hey? Let's just add a bunch of pork barrel spending to this new bill, and we'll just continue to add to it. That's what the Bucks are doing right now. It's absolutely ridiculous. You can't just throw away the future. That's part of the job as a general manager, is to pay attention to the future, and you've got to find that balance there of being somewhat fiscally responsible and also making moves, shrewd moves, to where you can put yourself in a position to have success. But the Bucks obviously did not do that. Now, we just got the breaking news from Shams that DeAndre Ayton, not surprisingly, has agreed to terms with the LA Lakers. And, you know, with DeAndre Ayton, I'll be honest with you, when the Blazers got him in that deal with Dame, I was excited because I was a fan of DeAndre Ayton. He's an antiquated center. Like, he's not a perfect player, but when he's engaged, he's highly productive. And I really thought that he got a bad rap coming out of Phoenix. You got to remember, if you go back to that year they went to the finals and lost to the Bucks, you know, that was a situation where Ayton took on the role that was asked of him, meaning less touches. We need to focus on rebounding, doing this, a little bit of that. And he did. He embraced it. And they made a run all the way to the finals. He played really well. But then there was a falling out. And the problem is they screwed him because instead of giving him the Supermax, he had to go out in restricted free agency and get a deal. He did, but it cost him a year on the contract. And so he got punked. And so I thought he got a bad rap. But after him being in Portland and seeing the way he operated when he was engaged here, very productive. But like so many players in the NBA, he wasn't engaged at all times. There was times where he was engaged. There's times where he would lose focus and not give his best effort, especially on defense. It would frustrate Chauncey Billups. And then you throw in some of the other personal issues with tardiness or whatever the case may be. And now he's going to go to L.A. And we know how this works, right? Ayton is what he is. Is he suddenly going to change and become someone that's fully engaged and dedicated to his craft at all times? Now that he's going to play with LeBron and Luka? My guess would be no. I hope that he does, but my guess would be that he probably won't. But he's definitely going to help them because they need help in the middle. They need a center, or at least a center that their head coach can trust. and be willing to put out there and play. Who'd they have? Jackson Hayes? J.J. Redick didn't even want to play him. So it's an opportunity for Ayton, if he is engaged, to get himself paid again. And maybe that's what he needs, to be engaged and really lock in so he can get one more payday. He's going to make a combined $34 million according to Shams. So the Blazers, and what are the Blazers giving him? So he's getting 25 from Portland. That means he's getting about $9 million next year from the Lakers. And I haven't seen the exact details, but from my understanding, it's like a 2-year deal for this year, and then I think there's a player option on the second year. So it'd be an opportunity for him to opt out and get more Jake, because the Lakers are probably like, hey, we want to bring you in. You're already getting hella paid by Portland for this year. You can opt out, and then we'll work on a new deal at that time. That's probably how it's going to play out. So maybe they'll get the best of what Ayton has to offer this year, because he's basically in a contract year. And there you have it. That's pretty much the big news. Nothing yet from the Blazers in terms of maneuvers. There's been no other big moves. The biggest move today in the NBA was DeAndre Ayton. The other story I'm going to keep an eye on tonight is Clayton Kershaw. And I looked up the numbers on this. So that I think the Dodgers host the White Sox tonight. Clayton Kershaw, who is one of the best pitchers in the modern era, he's 3 strikeouts away. So he's 29.97 going into the game tonight. 3 strikeouts, and he'll reach 3,000. The amazing thing about that number is he'll become the 20th pitcher in history to reach it. That tells you how unique and rare that is. Also, just the 4th left-hander. And Kershaw's a good dude. I like him. Of course, he's always taken a bad rap because his postseason record, not the same, but still a dominant pitcher. But 3,000, can you imagine that? The funny thing is, when you look up some of these random stats in baseball, I can tell you one thing: no one's going to reach the leader. Career strikeout leaders. Let's go to Rabbi Google for just a moment. And Nolan Ryan, just a sick freak, but I absolutely love it right now. So it's pretty funny, but Clayton Kershaw's close. He's about to enter. He's 20th on the list, 29.97. Nolan Ryan is your all-time leader with 5,714 strikeouts. Randy Johnson, second at 4,875. Roger Clemens, Steve Carlton, and Burt Blyleven at 3,701. So Nolan Ryan will be the career strikeout leader for basically the rest of time. And the other left-handers on the list, so we got Randy Johnson, that's 1. Steve Carlton is 2. And CC Sabathia is 3. And he's at 3,093. Clayton Kershaw will become the 4th left-hander. So that's kind of a cool story. But I love that. You know, Miranda was asking me about random baseball stats that I like. Nolan Ryan at 5,714 strikeouts is sick. And his innings pitched, 5,386. Unbelievable. What a sicko, man. Nolan Ryan is one of those guys. He's like Paul Bunyan. Like, I know he's real, but he's almost like some type of folk hero in my mind. I'd like to meet him sometime. I would say that there are a few athletes that I think I have a crush on. Nolan Ryan would be one of those guys. But props to Clayton Kershaw, who more than likely is going to hit the 3,000 club tonight. All right, when we come back, Dave Deckard, BlazersEdge.com, is going to join us. Brenden Slaughter is here, my man. And Jason Fellman is going to join me in the studio at 4 to talk some music. Hairfest is coming up, so we look forward to that. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number if you want to jump on board. And raise your hand if you're excited to see the potential meltdown between LeBron and DeAndre Ayton. It could go well, but then again, it could go really bad, too. So we'll have to wait and see how that happens. We'll get Dave's take on a variety of different matters with the Blazers coming up next. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, one of my good friends and the man behind BlazersEdge.com, the one and only Dave Deckard, is back on the Rip City Drive. Dave, always a pleasure to talk hoop with you, my friend. What are your plans coming up for 4th of July?
Well, just watching the NBA free agent market peter out into nothingness and getting ready for Summer League mostly. It's a working holiday.
Yeah, no question. It is starting to peter out a bit. I want to start with Damian Lillard. He was waived by the Bucks, of course, and they're going to stretch out the $113 million over 5 years. We'll get to that in just a moment. But, of course, and I would imagine you've gotten a lot of questions like this. I think a lot of fans would like to see Dame back in a Trailblazer uniform. I made the point yesterday that I just didn't think it was the right time or the right idea based on the trajectory of where the Trailblazers are headed. What's your take on that question?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interference. First of all, and most importantly, is the injury. How soon is he going to be able to play? And it's probably most of a year. So what, do you bring him back at the end of the year? If they're not making the playoffs, then why does that matter? If they are, do you want to mess that up? The other thing is Dame, even when he was perfectly healthy and younger, was more of a slowdown type of player, a half-court player. The Blazers don't like to play in the half-court anymore. So does he really fit, and does his style fit, and are you playing to his strengths? Also, is he going to be the same player coming back from injury? And is he going to be good enough to where you want to put either Drew Holiday or Scoot Henderson on the bench for him? All those questions are open, and none of them are very favorable toward Lillard. So the chances of a return, I think, are small. If there is one, it'll probably be ceremonial, and I'm not sure Dame's ready to hang it up yet. So I don't judge that as being very likely.
All right. I agree with you on that. And, for Dame now, he can rehab. And at least for the first time in his career, he'll be a free agent, and he has a chance to pick the team that he wants to play for, which is cool. But the Bucks, Dave, all right, so you stretch out $113 million over 5 years. So they're going to pay out $22.5 million per year for the next 5 years. They're like lighting that money on fire. What are they doing? That seems pretty reprehensible to me.
I mean, when you have a superstar like Giannis that you want to keep, you have to go to great lengths. And they have. Farther than any other NBA team has ever gone before in this waiver and stretching. Now, look, it makes some sense salary cap-wise, especially with the cap rising. This is an artifact of that TV rights deal, making the cap ceiling go higher. Now a move like this makes sense, whereas before you would have been so far over the cap that even stretching the contract wouldn't have brought you far enough down to do it. So, it's a perfect storm of that extra cap ceiling, the ability and willingness to waive Dame and his large contract, and the availability of Miles Turner. I'm not sure we're ever going to see anything quite like this again. But, hey, again, they're saying we're not going to see Giannis again, so we're going to go to these lengths to make it happen.
Dave, after it was announced that Ayton and the Blazers had agreed to a buyout, you had written a very good piece, and you talked about how usually in the buyout market, the team that's doing the buyout doesn't get that much savings because it's unlike players to give back money. But after you saw that it was about 30% of his salary, what was your take on it, after you knew the terms?
That was actually good. And as we're finding out, the Lakers are supplanting some of that, so that makes some sense. As far as a buyout goes, it's never good news for the team doing the buying out. It means the relationship has failed, which you don't want to happen, and you're paying money, like you said, for nothing, basically. You're paying money to get rid of a player. But this is only a one-term contract. The Blazers appear to not be stretching it, so as far as I know, they're going to take the loss this year, and they got a significant discount. In fact, basically what happens is DeAndre Ayton's salary now takes the salary slot that Anthony Simons had. It's the same amount. So it didn't really hurt the team that much. So for a buyout, this is about as good as it could get.
All right. The Blazers on draft night surprised everybody and selected Young Hansen from China. He was projected to go in round number 2. The Blazers traded back, acquired some draft capital, and he was selected at number 16. What's your take on that maneuver?
The draft capital, I think, is good. It might have been better to get the New Orleans deal because they're probably going to be worse. But, that's the way the NBA goes sometimes. I think that if he's the guy they wanted, they did about as well as possible. The big question, of course, is whether he should have been the guy they wanted, because, Carter Bryant was available. There were some other people available at their original level that people are pretty high on. So we've got to watch those other players, and we've got to watch Young Hansen. And if Young turns out to be great, you're fine. I mean, if he even does half of what they expect him to do, probably we will say this is pretty good for a mid-lottery pick. But if he turns out to be a third-string center, then the Blazers needed more than that. The draft is just about their only solid way of improving this roster at this point, and they can't afford to blank their picks. So it all depends on what happens from now on. The one thing I am saying is these are obviously Joe Cronin picks. There's no interference anymore. There's no excuses. There's no mitigating circumstances. If his picks turn out to be good, he's going to get huge credit for zigging when everybody else zagged, and he deserves credit as a genius. If this doesn't work out, though, there's no going back from this. If you do something so out of pocket that the whole rest of the league is going, what the heck is this? You have got to be right, because if you are wrong, you're falling flat on your face, and the Blazers can't afford that.
We're talking to Dave Deckard, BlazersEdge.com, here on the Rip City Drive. All right, the other move they made before the draft was trading Anthony Simons. And they traded him to Boston along with a couple of second-round picks in return for Drew Holiday. What was your take on that move?
Well, I mean, they like Drew Holiday, obviously. And again, more power to them, I guess. They got a decade older almost. They took on more salary. And Drew Holiday has had a down year in Boston, which is part of the reason. I mean, obviously, the Celtics' motivation was largely financial, and that's fine. The Blazers kind of took advantage of that, Boston wanting to cut salary. But that doesn't mean that Holiday was performing at full speed and full effectiveness last year. Hopefully, he'll bounce back. Or hopefully the Blazers can trade him to a contender and get some value out of him. If neither of those things happen, if Drew continues to decline and the Blazers are paying him for the next 3 years, that also is a problem. And it's another one of those things where you say the Blazers zigged when everybody else would have zagged, because no one else pays draft capital and young players to get older. That just doesn't happen. If it works out, it's great. If it doesn't work out, again, this is another thing that really makes you scratch your head and go, what are they doing?
Are you a zigger or a zagger, Dave? Which do you prefer?
Well, I used to live not too far from Spokane, so there was a lot of zag stuff up there. So I guess I'll go on that side.
Okay, that works for me. All right. I keep looking at the roster, and my thought is they really need Scoot and Shaden to hit, right? Like if those two guys cash in and become the players that the team thinks they can be, this whole rebuild's going to be a lot easier. That's where I keep coming back to. Those two guys are critical.
Yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to start now, and the Blazers are signaling that they're starting now. I mean, getting Holiday is part of that, right? You don't go out and get a 34-year-old who wants to start at point guard without saying, okay, we are getting better right now. However, there are mitigating circumstances. If it kind of doesn't work, or if they stall, we're just getting into the parts of the return from the Damian Lillard trade where things get interesting. You get some Milwaukee picks. You got a good draft next year. So if the Blazers don't do well this year and get in the lottery again, that's not a horrible thing. And also you got some pick swaps coming up and a pick outright in 2029. So maybe, just maybe, there'll be a chance to boost that. But they'd sure rather be boosting a team that's just getting into the playoffs rather than one that is starting another rebuild. So in that sense, I think you're correct. Scoot's pretty important, and Shaden is really important to the progress of this team.
And where do you come out on the debate? You know, when I'll be honest with you, when the Holiday trade went down, I thought, okay, this makes sense. It clears the way for Scoot and Shaden to start. But do you think it will be Scoot and Shaden starting in the backcourt, or is Holiday going to start? What do you think about that?
Well, this may be one of those classic coach versus GM dilemmas. and that I'm sure Cronin, now, again, mitigating this a little bit, Scoot has been up and down. And I think the organization understands that. And if Scoot doesn't step forward, then obviously something's got to be done. But generally, you would like to see Scoot start because he's the future. The problem with that is it's hard for a coach who wants to win to keep that young player starting when there's a player behind him that's as good as Jrue Holiday is when he's on. So Chauncey Billups is going to have an interesting decision here, and will he be able to keep his hand out of the cookie jar if Scoot is getting there but not quite there and needs the reps? Will he get them, or will Chauncey go, look, this team is simply better with Jrue starting at point, and I'm going to do it no matter what?
Hey, Dave, when you look around the NBA in free agency, what team has impressed you the most with their maneuvers?
You know, it's hard because, look, this isn't free agency of 10 years ago. You're not seeing stars come on the market anymore. Teams are either wrapping them up early, extending them, or just re-signing them. And who came on the market who changed teams that really, really matters? So what you're seeing is you're getting lower level guys making lower salaries, kind of filling in the corners of teams, which means like the difference that they're making is not huge. The teams that started free agency, I would say, on top are still on top. I'm not sure anybody's really leaped into elite status or even changed tiers based on free agency. Obviously, the team that made big shifts is Houston, and they are making a bid to go all the way to the top. Maybe they'll make it. They have the biggest claim to the best offseason, I think. Other than that, I'm not sure that I'm ready to say yet that anybody really changed their fate at all, especially over the last 48 hours.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Now, I would say I agree. Houston has been very active, and I would think they have a strong claim to offseason championship. Do you think between trades and free agency that Kevin Durant is probably the biggest addition, even at his age, or is it somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, look, when the league is changing, okay, you look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you look at Tyrese Halliburton, you look at young players who are starting to ascend because the game is getting faster, wider ranged, and defense is being prioritized. But even with that shift, it's hard to ignore the guys who have dominated the league for the last decade and a half. They still have something to say. Kevin Durant is a paragon of that, and I think that he is probably the single biggest acquisition so far of the offseason. However, I don't think that necessarily means that Houston is going to win the championship. I think they've addressed some problems with Durant, but you always have to ask, how long can he play? How many games? How many minutes? How long into the postseason? And is his scoring, as amazing as it is, enough to put them over the top when you lose some speed, some athleticism, and probably some defense from him being in there? I think I would have done it if I were the Rockets. I get it, but I don't think this makes them automatically the number one contender in the West, or even significantly more likely to beat Oklahoma City.
He's the man behind BlazersEdge.com. His name is Dave Deckard. He's here on the Rip City Drive. Hey, Dave, I really appreciate the time. You're smart, and you always make the show better. And I appreciate your insight. And I hope you have a good fourth as you continue to inspect all the maneuvers around the NBA now that free agency is winding down. You're the man.
Yep. Well, I mean, the big thing for Portland right now is Summer League. So let's get young Henson on the floor, and let's see what he can do.
Oh, I forgot to ask you a question. What do you think the Blazers will add? They have to add a player. What makes the most sense? What player type do you think would make the most sense to add in free agency?
Right now, I would go with probably a shooting guard or a power forward. But really, I think you're looking for skill as much as position. Mm-hmm. They still need three-point shooting. You can never have enough defenders who can shoot. So it wouldn't disappoint me if they got one more guy who was a 3-and-D guy. But honestly, I think they might hold on to that MLE mid-level exception because you can use them now to trade for players during the season instead of just signing them as a free agent. So look for them to keep that flexibility maybe and look at what they have in November, December, and decide, hey, we want to use this exception to trade for somebody. And the good news there quickly is that a lot of these players who are signing free agent contracts are signing them for less than the MLE. So there should be some good pieces available in the next year or two for that kind of money.
All right. Do you think, based on the moves that are made, that the Blazers have a plan where they see Hansen getting playing time this upcoming season?
I don't know, and I'm not sure that it matters in the coming season. I mean, again, I look for them to be, at best, struggling to make the play-in. So I could not tell you. I have to see him play more. And you know what they say? Well, he's got all these skills, but the physicality may be a problem. Well, it's a physical game. I mean, what you do with your body is what you're doing on the court. So we're going to have to see if he can handle the speed of the NBA, getting bumped around. He may be a fantastic passer, but if he gets knocked off the ball or denied the ball or pushed around every time he catches it, then he's not going to be able to pass. So we really have to see him out on the court against NBA competition to know how long it's going to take him to develop. And again, I think we'll get a little bit of a clue in Summer League, at least if he'll be able to step on the court during the regular season. And beyond that, we've just got to watch him develop.
All right, Dave. That was awesome, buddy. I appreciate your time as always. Happy 4th of July, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, my friend.
All right. That right there is a high-quality individual. He's as nice as you think he is. He's very smart, and I like it because he comes at things from a different angle. I am very simple-minded and have a low IQ. So that's why I have to talk to people like Dave, because his brain functions at a higher level. I realize that's not saying much because the majority of the population have a brain that functions at a higher level than me. But I do enjoy talking to Dave. All right, there you have it. And when I ask, what player type do you think the Blazers should sign? He said power forward or shooting guard. Whoever it is, can we get someone that can shoot, please? Might need to add that. And I love it, too, because I asked him about young Hansen. He's like, hey, I got to be honest, got to see him play. And that's a much better answer than some of these fake scouts that act like they've been following Hansen for like the last 5 years. Like they've been in China with him every day. It's like, who are you kidding? You guys are so full of absolute BS.
A lot of trips to China, I guess, Chad.
No, it's just BS, these fake scouts. I see him on social media. It's like, oh, yeah, Hansen this, Hansen. You haven't been there? You haven't seen him? Oh, my gosh, whatever. I am not a scout, but I do like the brain trust of the Portland Trailblazers. DeAndre Ayton is now with the Los Angeles Lakers. He's going to play with Luka and LeBron. I'm sure that's going to go well. I hope that Ayton throws a tantrum when J.J. Redick pulls him out for not giving full effort. J.J. Redick might have an aneurysm on the sideline at Crypto.com Arena. Hey, why aren't you playing hard? I didn't feel like it tonight, man. It's all good. All right, 503-248-0620. Is it too much to ask that someone, never mind. You would just think, like, if you make $35 million to play a kid's game, so in other words, you're getting a king's ransom to play a kid's game, why are you half-assing it, man? I guess that happens when you got that type of cash in the bank. I guess what happens is when you get FU money, you don't feel like you have to give your best at all times. That's unfortunate because the great athletes, they always wanted to bust their ass to be the best they could be. They were obsessed with it. Some guys aren't obsessed. Or maybe the best way to put it is some people love the lifestyle of being a professional athlete, but they don't necessarily love playing the sport they play. There's nothing wrong with that. But it just goes to show that some athletes, they're not all cut from the same cloth. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Jason Fellman is going to join me in the studio at the 4 o'clock hour to talk Hairfest, love music, and we'll do that coming up at 4. You can reach out, 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Jason Fellman is going to join me in studio coming up at 4 o'clock. We have to talk Hairfest. The big music festival coming up. So Fellman will join me in studio coming up at 4. We'll talk with him. Your telephone number, if you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. And if you want, you can always podcast. Just go to our free iHeartRadio app, and you can listen to the Dave Deckard interview. He kind of broke everything down. And I think we see everything eye to eye. I mentioned it yesterday. Like, I love Dame. You love Dame. We all do. But I just don't think it's in the best interest of the team or Dame to bring him back based on the direction that they're headed right now. They're looking to get longer, more athletic. They want to be able to run. And that's the one thing I had forgotten about. But if you look at the way the Blazers want to play now with this current group, they want to get out and push pace. They want to create opportunities with their defense, with turnovers, and create easy buckets. You know, Dame's a slow-it-down type of guy, not playing at pace. And he's not going to be the same player coming off the injury. So, and for Dame, why would you want to come to Portland at this stage in your career? One, it's going to be a logjam at guard. You're not going to fit and not be a natural fit for the way they want to play. And you're not going to have a chance, more than likely, to compete for a championship. There are teams where he can help and be a valuable member who have a better chance to win a title right now. And the reason why I mention that is because he's not getting any younger, so, you know, he's got to pay attention to age. And then, what was the word Dave used? I think it was ceremonial. Yeah, if you want to bring him back, like, for one last year before he shuts it down, I'm okay with that. And not only that, but my guess is, like, why would Chauncey Billups want Dame on his team based on the way he wants to play? What's Dame going to do, go out and start locking guys up coming off the Achilles injury? Well, I haven't really been a defender my whole career, but now I'm going to learn how to lock guys down. Like, I don't see that happening. And that's no disrespect to Dame. I mean, the guy's a lethal scorer, a great shooter. And he's always going to be remembered as one of the greats in franchise history, of course. And a lot of people consider him the best. So that's where I stand on that. You know, with the young Hansen thing, like, I love the fact that the Blazers were willing to zig when everyone else zagged, or whatever you want to call it. But, you know, I trust that brain trust that they have. I like the synergy within the front office. They scouted him, all right? They were following him around for over 2 years, and they were on top of him for an extended period of time. So, obviously, if they're going to roll the dice on a guy that was a second-round pick or projected to be a second-round pick, and you take him at number 16, they obviously saw something they loved. So I'm going to trust their process because I haven't seen him play. And most of the people out there acting like they've seen him play, I've never seen him play. Well, you go to China? You traveled to China by yourself? Because that sounds pretty safe. And you just followed him around? No, you didn't. I've never watched the Chinese Basketball Association in my life. I'd never heard of the guy when they drafted him. I'm like, wait, what? I talked to another guy that a good friend of mine yesterday who does nothing but watch NBA. He said that he had seen the name because he was looking at all the mock drafts, but was unaware of him as a player. The one thing that's interesting to me is that over in China, he's a big deal. So the Blazers, if I were them, bring in someone from China, or bring in somebody that's Chinese to run social media specifically for his fan base. They're going to be able to connect with a number of fans, which is cool. Great for streaming, great for merchandising, everything. He's a big deal. And they're really Yao. How many other players outside of Yao have turned out to be a big deal from China? I couldn't think of one in terms of a legit big-time player. Ming was awesome. But hopefully this guy, Hansen, will be the next. Who knows? But everything else, you know, with the Blazers, I don't think they're going to use. I kind of like the idea of kind of sitting on that MLE right now. There's no pressure to go out and spend carelessly, and you can carry it into the season and have that flexibility moving forward. And then with the internal development, then you put yourself in a position to where you can potentially, really make that strong push next year as this group continues to develop. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in contention. And, man, the Western Conference is tough. Look at the teams that are making moves right now and getting things done. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can reach out and find me on social at Chad and Rip City. And, of course, you can join us on YouTube, youtube.com Just find Rip City Radio 620, and we stream all of our live shows in studio. I still love that Avery Johnson clip, too. Oh, I'd absolutely take Cooper Flagg over Luka. Really? He's never played a game in the NBA. Avery, settle down. Let Nico Harrison say all the dumb things, and you just continue to be a Mavs fan. But come on. I think Cooper Flagg's going to be a superstar, but let's just slow down just a little bit. And quit trying to justify the movement of a top 5 player to the Lakers with 1 first-round pick coming in return. And then trying to sell it like, hey, this has been a part of the plan the whole time. Really? So your plan was to trade Luka, get 1 first-round pick in return, and then luck out in the lottery with like a 1% chance to land Cooper Flagg? That was your plan? This stuff drives you crazy. He gets lucky, and then he's trying to justify the maneuver. 2 things can be correct. It's like, hey, we made a bad trade and did not get assets in return, and then we lucked out and got Cooper Flagg. So there you have it. Other than that, there's not a lot of big moves going around in the NBA today. Summer League is coming up. Sean Highkin, our Trailblazer Insider, is going to be down there. He'll have a chance to watch the games, and, of course, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch young Hansen. I've seen the highlight clips, but it will be fun to watch him out there and start, bumping around and getting a chance to play against some more live bodies from the NBA. And then DeAndre Ayton, he gets a 2-year deal with the Lakers. The deal includes, according to Shams, a player option for that second year. Between Portland and L.A., he's going to get $34 million this year, meaning 25 from Portland, 9 from the Lakers. And so my guess is if he plays well and he's productive, then he'll opt out and get a new deal with the Lakers. But he was pretty much the only center available, or at least the best one. And the Lakers got him, and now J.J. Redick will have a guy at least that he can play at center that he'll somewhat trust. Until Ayton starts to pout and not give full effort and show up late to practices, and then he'll get mad at him. All right, we'll keep things rolling. When we come back, Jason Fellman is going to join me in studio. We'll talk Hairfest, which is a phenomenal show, and we'll talk music. He's also a Blazer fan, so I know he wants to share his thoughts on some of the maneuvers that have gone down. That's coming up next on the Rip City Drive here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, the breaking news from Shams. Former Trailblazers center DeAndre Ayton has agreed to terms with the Lakers. It's a 2-year deal with the second year having a player option. Ayton's going to make $34 million combined from both the Blazers and Lakers next year. Elsewhere, Knicks are expected to hire former Kings coach Mike Brown. Spencer Dinwiddie is on his way to Charlotte on a 1-year deal. Dante Exum has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Mavs. Dodgers are going to host the White Sox tonight. Clayton Kershaw will get the start. He is 3 strikeouts away from 3,000. If he hits it tonight, he'll become the 20th pitcher in history to reach the milestone and just the 4th left-hander. Mariners host the Royals at 6:40. That first pitch from T-Mobile Park. Logan Gilbert gets the start for Seattle. They're 7 games back in the West. Jason Fellman, the man behind Hairfest, is going to join me next in studio on the Rip City Drive. All right, next guest is the man behind Hairfest, the mother of all tribute band festivals coming up out in Canby, and we're going to give you all the details on that. My pleasure to welcome Jason Fellman, my buddy, back in studio. Jason, great to see you, man.
Great to be here, man. I always love coming on the show and talking it up.
You know, I loved it because I asked you what you've got on your, playlist right now, what type of music you're listening to, and it sounds like you're very similar to what I am. I have a wide variety of music that I listen to on a daily basis, and I loved it because you said that you're going back and listening to some bands from Austin that never made it big time, but bands you came across that you really love. So give me an example of 1 or 2 of those bands.
Yeah, well, the one that I'm really into right now is Black Pearl with this lead singer, Lisa Tingle. I think they were kind of in the 90s, 'cause, they weren't a 90s grungy band. It was more sort of blues rock, but she's sort of as a lead singer, a cross between Sammy Hagar, Sebastian Bach, and Ann Wilson. Another one is Monty Montgomery, who's sort of an acoustic guitar shredder. And Bob Schneider, who I know plays here sometimes, but he's got that song Metal and Steel, which I really like. And so, I just kind of enjoyed kind of reaching back into the catalog from my days living in Texas.
That's so awesome. When I interviewed John Oates, he told me something interesting. He had moved to Nashville, and after he ran into Marcus Mariota because they were living in the same condo complex or whatever, he said that what happened, and I found this interesting, very similar to you being in Austin, because Austin's very big for local bands, and they have a lot of great spots where you can go and watch local artists perform music. It's a great music town. Same thing as Nashville. But what he said is by being there in Nashville and going to the local clubs and watching some of these younger artists perform their music and how hard they were working to perfect their craft, he said that it helped him rediscover his love for music by watching them. And he said what happens is that when you're a band or an iconic band or someone that's been around for a long time and you've had a number of hits, he goes, a lot of times when you go out and play shows, you're just playing the same songs or pretty much the same songs every night. And so what it did for him to be in a town like Nashville, similar to Austin, is that you get out there, you get to the local clubs, you meet some of the local artists, you see how hard they're working on their craft, and then you find your vigor again to go out there and start working on your craft again. So it helped him rediscover his love, which is cool.
It's really cool. And ironically, because we're talking about tribute bands today, is that, as someone who actually plays in tribute bands, you actually do play essentially the same. I'm in a Journey tribute band. We play the same 25 songs every show because people don't want to hear songs 26 through 40. So it's really cool to get, sort of reconnected with the original artists of the day.
Yes.
And
because if you go out there as a tribute band and you're playing Journey songs, if you try to play something that's not one of their hits, people are gonna be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, chain reaction's great for the person who has that album, but otherwise nobody knows the song.
In fact, who was it? I think it was Miley Cyrus had done a concert. I forgot where it was at, maybe down in L.A. Paul Simon was there watching the show, and I heard Paul share the story, which I thought was fascinating. He watched the entire show and was impressed, but he went up and introduced himself and started talking to Miley, and he goes, "Miley, I really enjoyed your work. You're fantastic." But he goes, I recognize that you didn't play a lot of your hit songs. And he's like, "Why?" And so she explained her situation. She's like, "You got to play the hits. even if you are tired of them, he goes, your fans are coming to see and they expect to hear certain songs. You have to deliver on that. And then, she said it was a very important moment for Paul to explain that to her, because she said what happened is that she writes a song, and I would imagine this is the same for every artist, and you can relate to this. She writes a song that means something to her in the moment, but then over time, that song she's already shared the story on that song. She's on to something else, so it doesn't have the same meaning to her 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road. Isn't that
I
interesting?
mean, you got to figure, like, if you're writing a breakup song and then, 15 years later you're in a happy marriage with kids, you're not feeling the same way,
Yeah.
That's why I'm always fascinated with bands like, say, Fleetwood Mac, where you have the internal relationships and drama and stuff. You're like, what's that like decade to decade, It must be fascinating.
Because their biggest hits came through turmoil of those relationships.
Yeah.
In fact, it was, let's see here. It was Buckingham. So Lindsey Buckingham and I think Stevie Nicks were together, and then they were on the rocks. And then it was it McVie and Fleetwood?
I honestly don't know, because I think there was, Mick Fleetwood was involved with somebody in the band.
But they were writing songs about the breakup of each other.
Yes.
And they were smash hits, but it's interesting that they'd be on stage singing about the other person.
Go Your Own Way is the one that really stands out, because it's so, like, it's such a heartfelt song about the topic, and I'm just like, this must be so, what's this like backstage? How can they set that aside? But they do.
Yeah. And
or they did.
Yeah, I guess what you do, or maybe what you learn, is like, when you get a hit song, you're thankful for it, and you just got to continue to ride that wave, even if the song no longer has the same meaning to you. But, the song, I mean, and I've heard great artists talk about this, is that, the good music is what will last forever. So it's the songs that make everything work, right?
Totally.
So you've got to continue to foster that. And I'm just fascinated by the stories. Like, I love, now that I'm older, like, I love great music, but I want to know the story behind certain songs. Because when I grew up, I don't know if you were the same, but I've never been big on, like, lyrics. Most of my friends, they're really big on, like, the message of the song lyrics. My ear hears something that sounds good, and I got to be honest with you, most of the time I'm like, I don't even know, are they saying this or that? I can't really tell.
I'm exactly the same way.
You're the same way?
Yeah.
But then when I look up a song and what it means, I'm like, oh, that's what they're singing about. I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, it's nice now that you can actually, you can get information about the songs, both in terms of how they were written and obviously looking up the lyrics. As a drummer, learning songs like that might be to say I'm subbing in for a band and we have to learn a Chicago tune, right? So you get onto YouTube, you're looking for isolated drum tracks, and I'm like, oh, now I know why I can't play this song right. There were 2 drummers playing. There's this overdubbed, right? So it's stuff you don't like. Maybe wasn't in our consciousness before we could actually look this stuff up. Same with Fleetwood Mac. I'm like, I was learning some Fleetwood Mac songs. I'm like, this sounds physically impossible. Oh, it's overdubbed. I get it.
Yeah.
Studio,
Yeah, it's amazing. In fact, what I love about social media now is a lot of artists, from the guys and ladies that we grew up with listening to, they're putting out their own videos now. So I've been watching, I stumbled across it the other night, but the drummer for the Police, Stuart Copeland.
Yeah, he's got some great stuff out now.
Dude, he's like playing the drums to his own songs and like watching some of the drum parts. He's like, oh, this one's one of the hardest to play.
Yeah.
And he makes it look effortless.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, the Drumeo is probably where he was doing that.
Yeah.
It was really cool. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Like, do you
Unbelievable.
see that and you're like, okay, that's really good.
Well, it's actually, what's interesting is it sort of demystifies what they were doing. So it's interesting as an actual, as a drummer, when I look at that, my mind goes to, oh, that's what he's doing. Because you might listen to it and it sounds like one thing, and usually what happens is when you're learning a song, you tend to overcomplicate it rather than, hey, would somebody really play a part like this? Like, would this be physically? Would they reach over here to do this?
Yeah.
And so I subscribe to this sort of Occam's razor, like common things are common. The simplest solution is generally the right one, and so it's kind of been nice to sort of find out, well, what are they actually doing? It's really interesting.
I love watching drummers are my favorite. And there's some really good drummers who they'll take requests from their followers on social media, and they'll play different hit songs, and they'll play the drums along to it.
Yeah.
And I just love watching it because some of those songs are so, the pace or the way that it's put together. It's like, you would think, in my mind, I'm thinking, man, it's got to be a hard song to drum, and you watch them do it. It's like, it's fun to watch that process.
Yeah, well, plus you don't get to see all the takes they screwed up. That's the one thing. It always looks
true.
like, oh, man, he's like nailing it. I'm like, well, it's actually, you start looking a little closer, it's kind of stitched together.
How long, so when you've learned, like, you're in a Journey tribute band, like, how like how many times do you have to play a song before you feel comfortable with every note?
It really depends on the song, to be honest. There's some that you can do almost right away, and there's some, candidly, that took us years to get down. Like the actual song called "Escape" by Journey, right, which was the title track from the Escape album. It was never a radio hit, but there's a lot going on in that song, and
That's actually a great song.
it's a great song. It's actually, for me and our bass player, it's our favorite one to play. And it's really two songs in one, because that's the other thing, too, is that Journey has these weird song forms where it's like sometimes the chorus doesn't come till the end. Like, Don't Stop Believing. The chorus is at the end.
It's it's what makes it one of the most unique hits of all time.
Yeah.
The chorus doesn't come until the very end.
Yeah. And there's a lot. And so Journey has a lot of that, like AABB song form kind of stuff. And so that's, that makes it interesting. But the other one, too, is it also depends on, like, the era it was recorded in, because some of the stuff, like, back in the 80s, it's hard to differentiate. Like, if you listen to Journey, it's like, is that the bass drum, the floor tom, or the snare drum? They all sound like, doof. They all sound the same. So sometimes, like, just trying to parse out the parts is tricky because of the recording style of the time.
Now, when you say overdubbing, for those who don't understand, give us a basic description of what overdubbing
Yeah,
is.
so basically, specifically, like, let's say the drummer plays the song all the way through once, right? And they play the part that you would hear live. And then the producer says, well, that doesn't drive hard enough, or we want more cymbals, and so they literally go back through another pass and play over that a second part. So if you're a drummer trying to learn that, you don't have four hands and so many feet, right? So it makes it pretty tough to play. But a lot of bands did it. I mean, The Police is a great example. Like, if you listen to the song, like Synchronicity 2, right?
Oh, great
Tons
song.
I love the song. You can't play the part. It's overdubbed.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to pick and choose what parts you want to sort of pull out and to make it sound live.
Gosh, I love that so much. It's different. Back then it was different. Nowadays, it's got to be weird for bands who grew up in that era. Now everyone uses Pro Tools, right?
Totally, yeah.
So you can be in different parts of the country. You do your parts and you send it together, and someone mixes it, right?
Yeah.
And I've talked to different artists and I want to get your take on this, but like, who was the guy? Oh, I think it was Joe Walsh. He told me that he really believes that the best way to make music is to have everybody in the same room playing together. And he said the imperfections or minor mistakes are what create great music.
Yeah.
He said the problem is now you get Pro Tools and you're trying to make everything perfect, and then it doesn't sound the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I sort of, I've had to come to terms with this, as I think most people from our generation have, which is that, things are just different now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So on the one hand, sort of the old guy in me says, it's so sterile and perfect and all that, right? Like, we love our imperfect music.
Yes.
But, it's the same thing. Like, my 18-year-old daughter, she identifies with the prequels as the Star Wars movie. And I look at those and go, oh, my God, those are so sterile and weird in 3D. I like the old stuff where they were using practical. And so I think, I guess the optimist in me says, well, it's just different. But the pragmatist in me says, we've kind of lost something with all this technology and the music that comes with it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, I grew up like, how old are you?
52.
Yeah, so I'm 49. We grew up in the same era. I'm so fortunate, like you are, to be able to go to the theater when Star Wars came out.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
I mean, young Chad was like, are you kidding me? What is going on here?
Yeah, I remember being on my dad's shoulders, like, waiting in line. I camped out for Empire Strikes Back overnight.
Yeah.
At Westgate Theater, down there in Beaverton. Doesn't exist anymore.
I still remember the night before being at home when I knew the next day my mom and my brother and I were going to go see Return of the Jedi. And I couldn't sleep because I was like, this is
so exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got to see the mask, who was behind the mask, like all those things. And then, I was recently down at Disneyland and they got Star Wars Land. And
Pretty sweet.
Oh my gosh. If I could have experienced that as like 7 or 8 year old Chad, because I had the VHS tape of Empire Strikes Back. I watched it like a billion times. Gosh. But then when I saw the new movies with the CGI, I was like, this is still cool, but it's just a different feel.
Thankfully, they went back. I mean, one can debate the plot and all that, but at least they went back to using practical effects for a lot of those. So I think that the final three looked better.
Yes.
Even if the storytelling was a little bit spotty. But yeah, for me, it's 4, 5, 6, or that's Star Wars.
It doesn't get much better than that. All right, Jason Fellman is in studio. We're going to talk Hairfest, the mother of all tribute festivals, and it's going to be a great show. If you want to reach out and talk music, 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
Yeah, it's
All right, Jason Fellman is in studio. We just spent the last 6 minutes during the break talking nothing about but music. All right, you mentioned this. Hall and Bros are going to be at Hairfest. I got to be honest with you. This is back in like 2008, 2007, 2008. When I first became aware, I just stumbled across it on the internet, live from Daryl's house. And I remember seeing the first episode where it was just Daryl and a couple of his guys in his house that they were creating at the time. And then I was like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, that was really, what a great concept. And it turned out to be a great show. And I love Hall's perspective on that, where he gets a chance to bring in some of the younger artists that he likes. They play their music, and then they put their take on his music, and they work together on it. I just love the concept. It's so much fun. I mean, as a guy that plays music, I mean, do you enjoy seeing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm almost like envious when I see them. Like, I want to be in that room doing that with those people. You know what I mean? Because they're so good. And of course, every musician in the room there is so pro. I mean, the speed at which they learn songs and the way that they kind of put their own spin on it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of great material has come out of that, and he was certainly one of the first to kind of get that sort of thing going. You know, as the internet kind of took hold.
You mentioned the episode with CeeLo Green. So the two that come to mind in terms of No Can Do, I can't go for that. CeeLo Green and then Chromeo. Those two versions of No Can Do, the two very best I have ever heard. That's how good they are.
Yeah, they're really good. I actually like the live at Daryl's house version better than the original.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yes, and then I remember Smokey Robinson. Like, it was cool to see Hall, who's a legend in his own right, but he truly loves Smokey. And for him, you could see he was like a little kid.
He was geeking out. Yeah,
geeking out to have a chance to play with him. Like, I love seeing that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I just have so much fun with the music. And you know what's cool about music? Like, I would imagine, I haven't been to every place in the world, but universally, like, it's almost like music is something that every human on the planet enjoys some form of music, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It really is. I mean, even if you don't speak the language, you know, people know the songs.
All right, Hairfest 2025. I mean, you put a lot of time and effort into this, but it's coming up July 17th to the 19th. It's going to be out at Clackamas County Fairgrounds in Canby. But you have got, I mean, seriously, a badass list of bands coming in, man. How much time did you put into this year's program in terms of all the different bands you got coming in?
I mean, the interesting thing about the booking that I think would surprise people is once you actually get to the decisions about who you want to play, who you want to sort of ask for, the entire booking process takes 24 hours. It goes really fast. We send out offers, and we got the whole lineup confirmed, really the next day. But it's pretty cool because we look at things like we do surveys, right? At the end for customer surveys, and we get a really high response rate. And so the audience kind of, first of all, you can tell when a band is going over well. I mean, if you're in the venue and people are going crazy, it's going well, right? And it's not rocket science, because we know what bands are popular from the era. But I think the challenge is kind of putting the pieces together in order and what day you want them to play on and how you balance out the different edges of the genre. We were talking about earlier off air about how, the heart of Hairfest has always been around classic rock, the Journeys, the Def Leppards, the Fleetwood Macs. But then, we have things like this year we've got ABBA on one end of the spectrum. Of course, Beastie Boys is always there. That always works at Hairfest, right? So it's amazing you can go from like Iron Maiden to Beastie Boys.
Which is terrific. And ABBA, by the way, is awesome.
Yeah, and Band After Midnight, who we have, is just incredible. And then this year we're actually dipping our foot into the 90s pool. So we've got Jar of Lies, which is Alice in Chains. And my gut feeling is that that's going to go over extremely well. And I think that the Foo Fighters tribute that we have this year, the Fighting Foos, is probably the most modern, sort of the most recent sort of original that we've ever covered at Hairfest. But yeah, it goes back to the 90s too. So I think that'll fly.
Oh, man, I'll never forget. The first time I heard Rooster from Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
Again, I had to sit back, just like Man in the Box. Like, there's certain songs you hear where you're like, wow, I've never heard that before.
It's really cool. And of course, the thing about an event like Hairfest is that, the bands are always playing just the hits. You figure you got about 55 minutes to an hour to get out there and do it, right, as a band. Yeah. So it's like there's no fat on the set. I remember having a conversation with our lighting company, years ago. And it was about halfway through the show, and we were just like, it was like we're feeding them oxygen because he's like, this is unlike anything we ever do because, usually at a festival, you're sort of ramping up to the headliner.
Yeah.
But it's like any one of these bands would be a headliner at a festival if they were the real band, right?
Yeah.
So it's like literally from the minute you start, you got to like give every band headliner, production energy. And so it is fascinating to see kind of how a tribute band festival contrast with a sort of a real band festival in that regard.
All right, Jason Fellman in studio. Hairfest 2025 coming up July 17th to the 19th out at Clackamas County Fairgrounds. What I want to do is I just want to go through all the acts, and you just give me one or two quick points on each one, all right? To kind of capture what they're all about. We'll start with Stone in Love.
Well, I'm the drummer, and the big deal this year is that this is our final year as a band, actually. So this will be our at the end of 2025.
It's the end?
We're hanging it up, yeah, after 15 years. Same band members and everything. So we
why is now the time to shut it down?
Well, we've got members who don't even live in the United States. So it's a lot for them to come back, each year. And, we've been at this for 15 years. And, some people in, personal lives and things. I mean, there's no falling out or we wouldn't be doing a whole final run of shows.
But I would imagine it's been a very fulfilling 15 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've left nothing on the table. We've done everything we've ever wanted to do. I mean, never imagined that we'd get to do the types of gigs we've gotten to do over the years. So it's a gift.
Where's the one place you guys have played that you'll never forget?
Oh, wow. Well, we did the Olympic trials. That was pretty cool. But actually, sometimes the most memorable gigs aren't necessarily the most, awesome.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the more memorable gigs is Yoshi's down in San Francisco. This, really famous jazz club.
I know where it's at.
Brought us down there on a Wednesday.
That's
play.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I think in the green room, eating the green room meal was all I mean, it was just incredible, right? And of course, we go out there and they paid us all this money to come down there. And there were 50 people at the show, right?
How much did you make? How much did Yoshi's pay you to come down?
I think at the time it was $7,000. Right?
That's pretty good.
It was pretty good. Yeah, I mean, we actually make substantially more than that now, if you can believe it. But at the
That's
time,
awesome.
Yeah, at the time that was a big deal. Because,
so in other words, you're getting paid to do what you love.
Yeah, I always like to say, well, people ask me, what do you do for a living? It's it's essentially I play and or produce concerts for the music that I loved growing up.
How many acts were you guys doing per year over that 15 years, on average?
Oh, how many shows?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question because it changed over the year. I mean, it probably was about 20 a year. It wasn't that many, but we all play in multiple bands because you basically as if you're in a tribute band or bands, cover bands, tribute bands, or whatever, you kind of have to decide whether you want to play in one band or you want to play in a lot of bands. One band if you want to tour, right? Because you only play. I mean, how many Journey tribute shows can we do locally a year before we?
You got to tour. You got to get around.
So you got to get out. So if you don't want to get out on the road, because a lot of us in the tribute, age bracket have families, it's not practical to get out on the road, and so it's not uncommon for somebody to play 3, 4, even 5 tribute bands, so you can play a lot locally without having to hit the road. But yeah, for Stone in Love, that's the big deal. We're the final band on the main stage Saturday night before the closing party.
So what's next for you after 2025?
Well, I mean, I still play in Radical Revolution. I've got an 80s cover band, and we've got the Red Light Romeos, which is our 70s band, and we spun off this Holland Bros, where we do Hall & Oates and Doobie Brothers. So, and then for me as a drummer, I get to sub for lots of bands, so it's fun. I sub for a horn band called Ants in the Kitchen, and I'll probably be doing some sub gigs on drums for Taken by the Sky on Fleetwood Mac. So everybody always needs a drummer, so I'm certainly no shortage of opportunities to play.
All right, Taken by the Sky.
Well, they're sort of the heir apparent to Stone in Love. They're sort of the next band up. They're going to be the most popular band, tribute band in the state of Oregon after us, and they are obscenely good. I mean, spot on. From Stevie Nicks to Mick Fleetwood, on drums. They're just incredible, and so they're just never to be missed.
Hysteria.
Def Leppard tribute band, again, just completely spot on. They're from Seattle, always an annual favorite, and they look and sound. I mean, everybody in the band's in great shape. They look great. They sound great. They got the electric drums, the whole bit.
Nice. Eagles Fever. Or
Eagle Eyes. Yeah. So they're from Canada, and I think what blows people away about the Eagle Eyes is that they're the best sounding Eagles tribute that anyone's ever heard, and they do it with 4 guys. But I challenge anyone to find a better Eagles tribute than them. They are absolutely incredible musicians.
I love that. Best of both worlds.
A Van Halen tribute that has both a Sammy Hagar and a David Lee Roth. And I think that's one of the things that make that band unique is you get the best of both worlds. You get both eras.
Petty Fever.
Yeah, so they're the big award-winning band. Frank Murray is a nationally recognized Tom Petty impersonator. Of course, he looks and sounds like Tom Petty without a wig or anything. If you just see him standing in the room, you're like, oh, my God, is that Tom Petty?
Shoot to Thrill.
Yeah, they're super fun. They do AC/DC. This year, what's cool is that they're doing every night in this area we called Hippie Hollow.
Yeah.
We have we call laser sets. So the final band of the night plays 90 minutes with lasers and everything. So they're doing the laser set on Thursday night this year.
Judas Rising.
They're a first-timer this year. Judas Priest was one of the most highly requested acts annual survey. So we're excited to have those guys down from Seattle for the very first time.
Barracuda.
The first band of the Canadian invasion. We now book quite a few bands from tribute band from Canada, but Barracuda was the first, and the whole band's incredible. But Donna, who does the Ann Wilson part, it's just spot on, completely nails it, doesn't miss a note.
Jar of Lies.
Yeah, so we're dipping our foot into the '90s with
First timer.
First timer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dr. Crew.
Yeah. So the guys from Hysteria have an alter ego and with three of the same guys, and they do Motley Crue every bit as well. And again, they do all the costuming and everything. So they both look and people always joke, it's like, wow, man, this is like it's like having Vince Neil, but like from the first 2 years.
I love that.
Yeah.
Good Times Roll.
Yeah, so Cars Tribute, again, a little bit of a stylistic outlier, but another first-timer, and again, they do a fantastic job doing
How would you describe the Cars? Are they punk rock, new wave? Like, what are they? Because they're awesome.
Yeah, I think it depends on who you pair them with, to be honest. I mean, for me, I always just think 80s band.
Yeah, 80s band.
But they fit into it, it depends on which era. I was surprised. I didn't even realize till recently that they had two lead singers. I thought it was all Rick Ocasek. I had no idea.
It was Benjamin Orr, right?
Yeah, I think he does most of it. He's actually the better singer in the band.
All right. Crazy Train.
Oh yeah. So when we were here, we used to do the tribute Tuesdays with the Brew. I remember him sitting up in the office and everybody was walking by going, "Is Ozzy here?" Because you could stand right in front of him, talk to him, and you could mistake him for Ozzy. He is that close.
Love that. Saints and Sinners.
Yeah. So Whitesnake was. If you think about Hairfest, I feel like that's a quintessential Hairfest band.
Yeah, Coverdale, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Whitesnake, I used to listen to a lot of Whitesnake when I was younger. They have so many songs, like albums, like even songs that weren't hits. They're just great tunes. You can listen to the whole album.
And it's a lot of them. You're like, oh, I didn't realize that was Whitesnake. It's one of those bands. Yeah, more hits than you realize.
That was one of those albums, Slide It In, where I had to sneak it into the house because if my mom saw that with some of the titles, she'd be like, this is inappropriate.
That's the devil's music.
Yeah, that's right. That's what she would have said. Grand Royale.
Oh, man. So Beastie Boys, always a favorite. 8-piece band. They do costume changes. They got props. I mean, the whole thing's coordinated, and it's incredible. It's a show of shows.
So people love
the
Beastie Boys music.
Beastie Boys.
All right. How about Fear of the Dark?
Oh, Iron Maiden. Yeah, dude, and those guys are incredible. I'm sure there will be an Eddie, and the guy who sings for the band, Nick Courtney. He is sort of a Bruce Dickinson incarnate. He's amazing.
Lucky Town.
Yeah, Bruce Springsteen. So they're doing we always have a band. That one of the crazy things about Hairfest is how long it goes. So on Saturday alone, music starts at 9:30 a.m. and goes till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Crazy.
And so it starts out with the breakfast. So we're calling it the Boss Brunch this year, right? So Lucky Town's going to open it up. It'll be fun to have them in the morning.
Fighting Foos.
Yeah, so Foo Fighters, the most modern material we've ever had at Hairfest. But again, Foo Fighters is, at this point is a stalwart rock band, and I'm sure that's going to go over well.
What about Jukebox Heroes?
Oh, yeah. So they're a staple. Foreigner tribute. Again, Foreigners, all hits.
Love Foreigner.
And Rich Ray, who sings for them, who also sings for a bunch of other bands, including our revived Ramble On, who I'm sure the Zeppelin tribute, who's now back. They reformed a little bit too late for this year, but they'll be back next year.
Foreigner 4 is one of the great albums of all time.
Amazing, yeah.
Almost Human?
So they were there last year. Everybody loved them. Full makeup, Kiss. They've even got a Kiss sign. They're doing one of the laser sets this year on Friday night.
Rock Shop.
So Rock Shop is the closing party. First time we've ever had those guys. And the cool thing is we're going to have a bunch of guest singers from the other bands join them. They do the whole hair genre. And so you might see the Journey guy go up there and sing Night Ranger with them.
Oh, sweet.
Or you might see the Iron Maiden guy go sing Dio. So that's going to be a fun thing for people at the very end of the festival to kind of see some of their favorite tribute artists covering other bands.
Band After Midnight.
Yeah, that's the ABBA tribute. Again, phenomenal.
Holland Bros.
Yeah, so that's me. Hall & Oates and Doobie Brothers. We opened the festival on Thursday night. So if you like Hall & Oates and Doobie Brothers, it's a no-brainer.
And what's this last one? Is it Tribute?
Tribute 2. Yeah, so U2 tribute. Again, what's interesting about U2, I'm hard-pressed to find another band that was relevant with original material for a longer period of time than U2. I mean, the Stones might have been around longer, but in terms of when the material was actually still sort of relevant in the modern, zeitgeist, I think that U2 probably has the longest history of hits, of relevancy. I can't think of another band. It used to be Aerosmith, but I think that the U2 probably gets past that.
I just went back and listened to Joshua Tree. I hadn't listened in a long time, and I mean, was a really good album. And,
Yeah.
and Bono his vocals are legit, man.
Legit. Jeff Bissett, who does the Bono, it's crazy. So he's a drummer,
Oh
right?
my
In fact, we have
gosh.
several guys in here who are like drummers who like the guy who sings for Jar of Lies.
Does he play and sing at the same time?
No, that's the thing is it's like there are a lot of these like drummers who are like sneaky good singers. The guy who sings for the Foo Fighters tribute also plays drums in other drums in other tribute bands. So it's just you never know.
I think my favorite thing to watch in all of music is drummers singing and drumming at the same time. Like
Yep.
I don't know how you can do it, but Don Henley, I've been to so many Eagles concerts, but when he's playing and singing, I'm like, oh my gosh. Karen Carpenter, when she would play and sing,
the
I was
OG
like,
singing drummer.
yeah,
The Peter whatever, I can't remember his last name, for Rare Earth.
yes.
He was one of them too.
Phil Collins,
Yeah.
because I mean you drum, so it's like I don't know how you can keep the rhythm and timing down and still be able to sing.
So surprisingly, so I'm a lead singer, guitar player in one band, and I sing backups and drums in a couple other bands. The thing that might surprise you is that it's actually easier to sing and play drums than it is to sing and play guitar.
It is.
And the reason is because of where you're at with your posture. So if you're holding a guitar, you're actually leaning over your guitar. It collapses your chest cavity, and it's hard to have good technique. On drums, sort of like if you exercise and then you go into the shower, you can sing anything, right? And it's sort of like that. It's like you're because you're working, you got the air flowing. It actually sort of it sort of primes the pump. So if you're playing complicated music, that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
But like if you think about the Eagles, that's not most of these bands while they're drumming, they're not playing complicated material. I mean, the guy who's probably the most impressive is Dean Castronovo, the current Journey drummer. I mean, he sings Journey songs from behind the kit as the lead singer
I saw
on
him do
occasions.
it. Yeah, I saw him do it when I saw him in concert
Yep.
last year. I was like,
Yep.
whoa.
It's a good vocal rest for their lead singer, and of course, there were times when he actually had to finish the tour. I think it was when I could have this wrong, but I think when Steve Vajiri lost his
You're
voice,
right.
I think he actually finished the tour.
Yeah, he did.
Doing the lead vocals, and that guy's voice is incredible. And I can tell you, as one who plays drums in a Journey tribute band, the coordination is tricky to do the lead vocals there. I'm sure. Yeah.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. We'll come back more with Jason Fellman with Hairfest coming up July 17th to the 19th, the mother of all tribute festivals out in Canby. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can find me on social at Chad and Rip City. Jason Fellman in the house. More with him when we come back. All right, Jason Fellman in studio. Hairfest 2025 coming up July 17th through the 19th. All right. I didn't even know this was happening until recently when someone had reached out to me. Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass are going to be in Portland on Monday, November 10th at the Schnitz. I'm totally going to that. Like, I've never seen him live. I didn't even know he was playing anymore.
Yeah, when you told me that, I was like, that was a huge surprise. That show, if it's gone on sale, it's probably already sold out, or if it hasn't, it will.
It says, when I just pulled up the website, it says inventory is limited.
Limited, yeah. I was gonna say because that's a relatively small venue, I would think, for them.
It is. I've seen. Obviously, I've been to a few shows there. I saw Sting on that tour where he was playing with the orchestra. I saw him there, so it was pretty awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I saw Kenny Loggins up there probably about 20 years ago. So I've been to a few shows at the Schnitz. I like it because it's a smaller venue, a little more intimate.
I've been listening to the recent. That was another one I've been listening to the Redwoods acoustic one.
Oh,
with
amazing!
Kenny Loggins. Oh God, that version of "This Is It."
Yeah,
that's my favorite. I love that.
It's unbelievable. And then the version of "What a Fool Believes" with Michael.
Yep. Out
there in the Redwoods, like I'm just like, okay, I'm good with this.
Yeah. It makes me want to do a concert in the woods, actually.
Okay.
I got to figure that out.
You can explain this to me because I know that so they both released the song. Doobie Brothers released What a Fool Believes, and Kenny released it on his solo album, but Kenny's version didn't do very well.
Yeah.
But the Doobie Brothers did, and what Kenny said is that he goes, I should have known, but he goes, Michael plays the keyboard differently than anybody else, and so I can't replicate the sound because he's self-taught. I didn't know exactly what he meant, but he goes, that's why their version did so much better.
Interesting. I don't know. I know more about his voice than I do about his keyboards, but it does sort of bring to mind this idea that every musician has a different feel, and that can make a huge difference. It's why sometimes when you hear a cover version of a song, you're just like, that's not hitting. It's like, that sounds really stiff. Or,
yeah.
So I think part of it too is that, and along the same lines, I was learning "Keep Forgetting," right, for our band, and of course as a drummer, it's really hard to play because you got to
I think Piccaro's the first guy that played
the Toto
it, right?
guy, right? Of course, he played on everything in that era. Incidentally, his father was my playing technique teacher at the school I was at when he passed away.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I came into work one day and they're like, "Dude, Jeff just died," and he was out. Yeah, Joe Picaro.
Joe Picaro.
Yeah. Who was a very accomplished drummer in his own right at the day, but
all the guys from Toto loved him. He was a great guy.
Yeah, but Jeff is you could argue is the greatest studio. I mean, Hal Blaine or Jeff Porcaro, the greatest studio drummers of all time. And but anyways,
most people agree with that.
But what was interesting is there's a version of "Keep Forgetting" that the Doobie Brothers play live. It's floating around online, and it's interesting to hear how different it sounds than the Jeff Porcaro version, even though they're technically playing the same song with the same singer.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's a good one to check out.
I love that one. How much do you enjoy playing that song?
It is so fun. I mean, they're all fun, right? Anything, and of course with the Doobie Brothers stuff, right? It's super cool because we've also got Christy Bradley in our band who plays percussion. So we got a percussionist in the band. We don't do two drummers because that's sort of it's not really necessary to have two drummers to play most of those, but every once in a while you get a song like "Taking It to the Streets," where like you really wish you had the second drummer because to get from one side of the drum set to the other to play the parts correctly is pretty tough.
All right, take a listen to this live version, 1982. This is pretty solid. I think this is the one you're talking about. I've seen it, and it's freaking awesome. Come on now, let's get to the good stuff. Here it comes.
Yeah, the hi-hat part's
this
different.
This is a tune from a new album by Mr. Michael McDonald. A great new album. It's called "If That's What It Takes." And this is a tune that you've probably been hearing on the radio a lot lately. This is Michael's first single release from his new album. It's called "I Keep Forgetting."
And listen to this at the beginning. The drums sound great, man.
But it's interesting because it's a different feel, right? Than the original. But it works, and it sounds very Doobies-esque.
What a great intro to a song that is. But you're right, that's probably hard when a guy like Porcaro plays something and all of a sudden you're asked to replicate that. It's like, oh, come on, man, you're killing me.
Yeah. That's, Africa is the same way. When you try to play Africa, that part, it's not, technically it's that hard, but to make it sound right, ugh.
What
tough.
about Rosanna with that Super Bowl shuffle at the beginning?
with the Purdy shuffle. So
Yeah.
Bernard Purdy, who kind of came, and that one's actually a lot easier, to be honest, because it's not like it's technically demanding. If you know how to play, left hand, right hand, left hand lead, like that one's actually pretty easy, to be honest. But keep forgetting, for me anyway, because I don't have a very supple wrist. It's really hard.
Yeah, you need a supple wrist to be able to play that.
Yeah, and you need the right technique for it. And I've had wrist surgery, so my wrist, I've had a cyst removed from the inside of my wrist, so it just doesn't quite do what it's supposed to sometimes.
All right, so Hairfest, July 17th through the 19th. So what's the best way to get tickets? How do you do it? Because it's over multiple days. So give me the breakdown and the best way to view Hairfest.
Yeah, so hairfest.com. I think the thing that surprises people if they haven't seen it in writing is it's actually HARE Fest, because it started out the Wild Hair Saloon in Canby many years ago, 2010, right? This is our 13th year. We had 2 years off for COVID. So, yeah, you hit the website, and it really is pretty self-explanatory. We still have a few tent campsites left if people want to camp. We always recommend that because then you're on site. You want to go. It's a long festival, so just going to take a nap in your tent is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
So we always recommend that. But otherwise, the only other thing we're telling people is that there's a lot of construction out in the Canby area this year, so you want to get there early.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's 3 days. Thursday is just the nighttime show. Friday, the music starts at 11 a.m. and goes till about 1 in the morning. And Saturday, it starts at 9:30 a.m. and goes till 1 a.m. It's a lot of music.
Did you ever have any idea that Hairfest will become what it's become?
No clue. We started this. We did it. Joan Monin, who owns the Wild Hair Saloon, who actually she sold her stake this year to Kyle Lang, who's now my partner. This was just at the end of last year. He was our general manager for 4 years. He's still the general manager, but now he owns half of it too. And we've launched other festivals. Like we're launching a new festival in Salem this year. It's our first all ages thing. So it's August. It's the Capital City Retro Fest, August 22nd to 24th. So we're expanding, and it's a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun.
That's great. All right, the website hairfest.com, HAREfest.com, and you can get your tickets there. It kicks off on July 17th, just a night show, and then on the next day, the music will kick off at 11 all the way until 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's going to continue throughout the weekend.
Yeah, it is summer camp for adults, and it truly is the mother of all tribute festivals.
That's a good way to put it. Summer camp for adults.
Yep, definitely. You can let your freak flag fly.
But isn't it great though with music like that, like the way that certain music you hear it and it takes you back to a time and a place, right?
I mean, and as a musician performing it, we get this asked a lot, like, what's your favorite part of it? And truly, it is like the audience knows every word. So it's like, well, it's also like a childhood fantasy. It's like, I'm never going to be in a famous band. So this is when people like make fun of us in tribute bands, oh, you're a bunch of wannabes. I'm like, yeah, I am a wannabe. I want to do this. This is awesome.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's fun. Everyone's having fun. What's the big deal? It's legal.
Yeah, it's just so great.
Yeah,
all right, Jason Fellman, Hairfest 2025, the tribute of all the mother of all tribute festivals. It's coming up on July 17th through the 19th. Get your tickets now at hairfest.com. Jason, I love having you in studio, man. Happy 4th, and thanks, buddy.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
Killer.
All right, it's now 5 o'clock. What's up, my friends? The big news out of the NBA today. Former Trailblazer DeAndre Ayton has found a new home. According to Shams, he's agreed to terms with the Lakers. He's going to earn a combined $34 million between the Lakers and Blazers next season. Knicks are going to hire Mike Brown as their next head coach. Spencer Dinwiddie on his way to Charlotte, one-year deal. Dante Exum, a one-year deal with the Mavs. You can podcast my show on our free iHeartRadio app. I spoke with Dave Deckard on all things Trailblazers on the show today. Dodgers are going to take on the White Sox tonight down at Dodger Stadium. Clayton Kershaw, 3 strikeouts away from 3,000. If he hits the mark tonight, he'll become the 20th pitcher in history to reach the milestone. And just the 4th left-hander, Mariners and Royals, first pitch from T-Mobile at 6:40. We got more of the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing coming at you right now. All right, big thanks to Jason Fellman. Celeste Trapp going to join me in the studio coming up at 5:20. She's been down in San Diego, so we'll get a chance to discuss a variety of different things with What Women Want. Celeste coming up in 20 minutes. All right, I have found the priority envelope that was sent to me here at the station from my good friend Scotty Bethune. And I'm looking at it right now, and he did something that's freaking awesome. I opened it up. I thought it might be anthrax. Like I told you, I know there are a lot of people that want to take me out, but what he sent me was pretty awesome. Scott loves golf. I'm a big golf nut. He sent me a ball mark. On one side, it's got the old school Denver Bronco D, and on the other side, it has 4 words. Show me your Bronco! And I don't know where he got this made, but clearly he had to have it specially ordered. But this is a dope ball mark. So a big props to Scotty Bethune for the Denver Bronco ball mark with "Show me your Bronco" on the backside. Thank you, my friend. That is big time right there. Scotty, you're the man. All right? I appreciate you. And I probably deserve that from you, considering that you're always busting my balls with basically all of my takes. But I love that. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to getting out on the course tomorrow. You know, I've been doing so much activity lately from, my workouts. I had a great workout today. And so the workouts are going well, but I've been doing so much activity with the golf and so much walking that I've had my right knee, maybe a little tendonitis. And so I'm trying something different. I met with a group of individuals yesterday from this company called Red Vive, and they specialize in red light therapy that I have not had a chance to experience before. So I just started my first treatment last night. They gave me this device that I took home, and what you do is with the red light therapy is you sit in front of the lights with the infrared, and you basically get 6 to 12 inches away from the light, and you put the body part that you're trying to get treatment to right in front of the light, 6 to 12 inches away. So I did a 10-minute treatment last night, 10-minute treatment this morning, and I'm going to see what it does for my knee with the tendonitis. One of the big benefits is it helps reduce inflammation. I don't typically have body tweaks, so the knee tendonitis, it's not severe, but I notice it when I'm walking around the course on incline or decline. It does not bother me when I'm swinging the golf club, thank God, but I do notice it. And especially this past weekend, I was up there at Longview Country Club, and that course has got a lot of, it's got a lot of elevation change. And so I really started to feel my knee on Sunday. I played Monday and Tuesday, and it was fine because I was on a flatter course. But those type of inclines, I could definitely notice it. So the red light therapy, you cannot wear your clothes when you're doing the red light therapy. So I wish you could have seen what I looked like last night and this morning. And I wasn't sure. Like, again, I'm still getting used to it. It's not, red light therapy is not bad for your eyes, but it's a bright. These red lights are very bright. So I just put on some sunglasses. So I'm literally sitting in my room on the edge of my bed with this red light on, in my underwear with sunglasses on. Now, just picture that in your mind for just a moment. How horrifying is that? So there I am in my underwear with sunglasses on, with a big red light right in front of me as I'm treating my knee. And, like puppy shots, I'm sure most of you can relate to this. My little wiener dog, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I can be in the bathroom. I can be in the kitchen. I go outside. No matter where I'm at, I've got a little shadow. I've got a little furry shadow that sits about 6 inches off the ground. He stalks me. It's like, dude, can I just have a moment? No. And if I close the bathroom door and I'm inside using the bathroom, he whines outside until I open the door because he wants to be in there next to me. So he walks into my room, and I'm sitting there in front of the red light in my underwear with sunglasses on. He just gave me a head tilt, like, what the flip is going on in here? I know it looked ridiculous, but I love trying alternative forms of medicine, alternative forms of treatment. And we'll see how this works. But I don't want to slow down because it's prime golf time right now. Like, the weather and the courses, everything's coming together right now. We are entering into a sweet spot of golf right now. Now, the good news is I'm taking off on my road trip with Isaac on, what day is that? Saturday. So I'll get a few days of forced rest. And then my workout partner, Luke's going to be out of town next week. So, I'm going to get a little more rest. But hopefully that I'm anxious to see what the red light therapy will do. So there you have it. That's what's going on. So I'm sorry. I don't want to put images like that in your mind, but there you have it. But big thanks to Scotty Bethune, man. I love the ball mark, buddy. That's awesome. Thank you so much. So I've got the Bronco ball mark. The weather's perfect right now. Like, it is all set up for greatness. 503-248-0620. And apparently traffic right now is a disaster. I'm getting text messages from people around town. And that's the way it goes.
It's progressively getting worse, Chad.
That's pretty much true.
I'm not going to pretend to have been someone who's been around here for a long time, but in my 20-some years in this state, I can remember traffic didn't used to be quite this bad. It kind of seems like it's getting a little bit worse each day.
Yeah, because we have too many people moving up here.
Yeah, I'm like, stay out, y'all.
And heaven forbid that we use our tax dollars to improve roads or expand roads. Why do we want to do that?
I mean, Chad, I've been saying for a long time, Oregon could use, just give us like one more freeway. I don't know where you put it, but we could use like just one more freeway. Take some of that pressure off, man, because you look at Oregon's infrastructure. I don't think they expected us to have as many people here as we do.
No, the state legislature is a disaster. And so it is in Washington, too. We got new taxes coming in here in July. Looking forward to that. From the 503, Chad, excellent interview with Dave Deckard. You feel more informed after listening to him. There's no question. Would a Jeremy Grant for Jonathan Kuminga trade make sense? Each team moves a vet that doesn't quite fit with their team for a vet that fits a little bit better. What is your take? Keep up the great work, Ken in Hillsborough. Well, Ken, I appreciate the message. Happy 4th of July, my friend. Well, I like the idea of trading Grant from the standpoint that Kuminga is a much younger player. But the problem is that, Kuminga, I don't know if he'd fit well or not. The big problem with Kuminga is that he couldn't figure out how to play with Steph Curry. And that was a problem. And when especially with, the Billups and the way he wants to play he wants to play fast. He wants to move the basketball. He wants to have multiple people involved. So based on what I've seen from Kuminga and the difficulty he's had on the floor with some of the concepts that they're trying to run, I don't know if he'd be a good fit. Meaning, I doubt that I would make the trade for Kuminga. But I definitely want the Blazers. It's my number one priority. I mean, Joe has not called me to ask my take on what they should do, but my number one priority is to move Grant and thus clearing the pathway for the two forwards, Kamani. Now I'm just mixing up names now.
Blending them together, man. There it is.
Denny and Tumani. Because the Blazers are at their best when those two guys are on the floor together. But, we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that they get a deal done. You would think Jeremy Grant, even with the price tag, there are teams that could use him because of his three-point shooting. And, he doesn't rebound. That's the only downside of Grant. But, he's decent defender and a good three-point shooter. He could fit in. My guess would be the type of team that would want Grant would be, like a contender that's looking for a little extra depth and maybe seeing a piece that they think is going to help kind of put them over the top. The problem is the contract. So the Blazers are going to have to take money back, the $30+ million that he makes. But what I'm hoping is they can put together a deal where maybe the Blazers get a couple of guys in return for Grant. Maybe a couple of guys who are a little bit younger that kind of fit the culture and what they're trying to accomplish with their group. So that's what I'm hoping for. And we'll see how things shake out. But, again, the great thing about where the Blazers are at right now, they're not going to compete for a championship next year. They're moving in the right direction, which is great. But there's no pressure on Cronin to sign a player today or to make a trade right now. With Jeremy Grant, if you find the value in return that you're looking for, that's great. If not, then wait a little bit. You don't have to make a move right now. What I don't want is to have a situation where Grant's starting in place of either Tamani or Denny. I want the young guys. I want Scoot, Shaden, Klingon, Denny, and Tamani on the floor starting for the Blazers next year because I want those guys to be, crammed into as many situations as possible to continue the development. To me, that's critical. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Big thanks to Scotty Bethune for the Denver Bronco ball mark. I love it. I can't open it. It's like, I don't know what type of plastic container they got it in, but I'm one step away from, breaking it. What is this thing? It's not plutonium in there. Ridiculous.
Plutonium.
All right. Yeah, what? And I don't have fingernails. One of my biggest flaws, Brenden, is I chew my fingernails.
Used to be a bad one for me, too.
How did you stop?
I honestly don't know. I think I just kind of grew out of it. But as a kid, I was bad.
Well, considering I turned 50 in a month and a half, I don't think I'm growing out of chewing my fingernails.
Hey, we've all got something, man.
All right, when we come back, Celeste Trapp going to join me in studio. Hope you're enjoying your Wednesday afternoon as we approach the 4th of July. You got the Rip City Drive here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, always a pleasure to welcome Celeste Trapp back in studio, and she's been out. We haven't done What Women Want for a couple of weeks because she's been out, and I was out. We were enjoying some time. You were down in San Diego. How are things down there? I love San Diego.
You know, it was great. I think I was there last time in March, so it was a little bit warmer. Not much. It was still like high 60s, but
Yeah.
I took my son and his friend. We went into SeaWorld, which I was thankful that it wasn't like baking hot, but it was still really pleasant. And
I've never been to
fun.
SeaWorld. How cool is that?
Well, you'd love it because they have rides, Chad.
They
You
have
love
rides at SeaWorld?
Yeah, they have rides at SeaWorld. So basically, we did almost the morning to close. Not quite as long as you did at Disneyland.
Yeah.
But they had, I think they did each the roller coaster 6 times. And it was my son's first time on a roller coaster because he was been afraid of them basically up until this point. So he was jazzed that he got that, off his list and had a great time. But yeah, they saw more things around the rides than they did actually marine life. But
Yeah.
it all worked out.
That's great. I'm glad I had a good time. And it sounds like he got a lot of good life experience like you and I did when we were younger, going out and enjoying a little body surfing.
Oh my gosh, he loves the water and loves body surfing. But he got just thrashed on, and he had his poor chin was just all bloody, and he
Yep.
bit his lip
Yep.
through, and so it really rattled him. But I'm glad because you have to have appreciation for the ocean and how powerful it is. And I think he's on the swim team, so he's a great swimmer. But I think it's good to just have that knowledge that you need to be careful.
I really believe this. It's good sometimes to kind of get your ass whooped in a situation like that. Just so you said, you walk away with a little more, okay, I can't just go in balls to the wall at all times. I got to think about what I'm doing. And I've been hammered like that too. I went out with my buddy Jeff. We're like, dude, we got this. Got smashed into the sand. And I was like disoriented. I'm like, I'm going to die. And then you realize like, okay, I got to think about what I'm doing here.
Yeah, that is just not fun to me. I was 12 when I had that experience in California on the surf, and it's like after then, it's like, no, I don't think I need to do that anymore.
That's great. You know, one thing I was just talking with you about this, but one thing I respect about you, and I've got a few friends like this, but you've got the entrepreneurial spirit. So it's like you're always looking to create things and how you can continue to develop. Like, I don't have that part of my brain that works like you. And where did you get that from? And how long has it been? Did you have that at a young age where you had that desire to go out and you wanted to build a business or do different things like that? I love it.
No, I didn't plan on. I did start a business actually in college. It was only to write off like the $2,500 computer. If you remember the big, huge box computer that were like so much money.
Yes.
So I started like a graphic design, which back then we called it desktop publishing business, and when I was at Oregon. So that was not really to be an entrepreneur, but I did actually have to enter college, have my own job in that field and print brokering. But I didn't want to. It's only because I couldn't get a job at Microsoft. That was my goal, was to get a job. So it just kind of fell into it. And I was self-sufficient, I guess, for the first year after college. But then I got a job at a real company, like a soon-to-be Fortune 500 company. And it was so nice to have the benefits and the steady paycheck. I really enjoyed that. So I planned on working my way up and went back to school for my MBA just because I planned on doing the corporate ladder thing. So being an entrepreneur really was not my intention.
Where'd you go to school for your MBA?
Portland State's night program, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
And
I worked from home back then, back in the day when most people weren't working from home. And it was a great way to get out of the house.
So did you go to Oregon? Where'd you get your 4-year?
Oregon and Portland State, yeah.
Okay, combination then.
Yeah.
You couldn't get a job at Microsoft?
I know, and I was willing to be a receptionist. I typed 72 words a minute. So, so I ended up just doing my own thing. But yeah, things would have been a little different for me if I had taken that job at Microsoft back in the 90s.
I had a few friends who, went to high school with when they graduated. A couple went to Washington State, a couple went to Washington. When they were done, they got into Microsoft, and then they just exploded from there. And then that led to different things. A couple of guys broke off and kind of opened up their own deal, but yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to think what might have happened.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I like the entrepreneurial spirit. Well, we got a good topic today. I think we want to focus on expectations, which is good. And I think expectations are something that's important when you're talking about relationships or whatever. But kind of give me your breakdown on what you think expectations are.
Well, we all have them. We don't all voice them. Sometimes we don't even know what they are. Some people haven't really thought about what their expectations are. And it might be expectations about your own life.
Yeah.
And how you want to lead your life. You did the eulogy exercise, which is, can be really eye-opening when people start thinking about so then you can start having expectations around your own life once you start thinking about it at that level.
Yeah.
But when people are together in a relationship, often maybe they haven't thought about their expectations themselves about what they want to have in a partner. But if they have, often they haven't expressed that directly to their partner. And for a multitude of reasons. I mean, it is hard to start these conversations sometimes. And sometimes it's just, there's not a time and place. So, part of with the Relationship Inc. program that I've been working on is like creating systems around that to help get this kind of information exchanged between couples so that they can use it in a way that maybe they decide early on, if they're the beginning of the relationship.
Yeah.
They can say, I don't think that we actually are aligned on these things. Maybe it's parenting, maybe it's how you want to retire, maybe it's just the relationship dynamics themselves, the expectations around those. So you can know that information and decide, is this somebody I really want to invest more time and energy and my heart into? Or is it best to move on? So it's good to kind of have that knowledge. And also, if you don't have that knowledge, and you want to be in the relationship, it's really hard to meet somebody's expectations if you don't know what they are.
Yeah. And I can be honest with you, I've never discussed or expressed or listed off any expectations with any relationship I've ever been in because I've never really thought about it, right? I never really thought what my expectations are. So is this something that, did you make a list for yourself, or is this something that you went through a thought process yourself and came up with kind of your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, yes. And in a casual, informal way, I think there's just like, you realize like, oh, okay, well, this person I'm in a relationship with, isn't making me happy in these ways or something. And then it's like, well, why is that? Well, there's this need or desire for something that they're not providing. And then it's like, you either tell them what that is, or you just think, no, they're not probably going to be that person that's going to meet that need. And so for me, it was, a lot of this, the Relationship Inc. is comparing how you run a business or how businesses in general are sustainable and successful. And a lot of it's around communication and systemization of that communication. And setting those expectations is like when you hire somebody into your team or into your company, they have a job description. They know what the expectations are of that role. But when you think about a relationship, people don't really have a job description, right, for their partner, but they do. They just haven't formalized it. There is some idea in their mind of what they want in a partner in different aspects. Maybe it's, when you talk about family, it's the dynamics of, physical intimacy, it's children, finances. Everyone's different. And so really we do have this kind of job description of a partner, but we just haven't really thought about it or communicated it.
Yeah, my biggest fear when it comes to those type of topics, Celeste, is like, how do I begin that conversation?
Right.
If I bring it up and the other person hasn't voiced any expectations, my thought would be, am I going to sound crazy?
Right.
Or they think I'm being too
yeah,
forward?
You probably are going to sound crazy. And so that's why to have the program that I've been working on, that's not done yet, but it's in the works, is that it provides an outlet for somebody to, we want to do this program because we want to have really great communication and we want to be able to have a relationship that we want to get renewed. If you think of it in like a contract that's renewable rather than till death do us part, which many people seem to think marriage means, but isn't what we all know what it means. So to be able to have that information, kind of be able to pull that information out of each other within a program versus like sitting across the table and being like, well, Chad, I was been wondering how your ideas are on finances and how if we were together, how we would share those. So it is hard. I mean, expectations are hard for people to articulate, and they just kind of need a little help to do that and to share it.
Do you think that would be best in a workshop type setting where you have both individuals and you're discussing these topics to where it's not a taboo subject, but it's something that's brought up in a workshop environment where people are discussing it, and that kind of gets the ball rolling on that conversation.
That's exactly. And it could be online or in person, but it's just like, okay, so this is what we're going to talk about now. So now each of you share your ideas around, so if it was a workshop around like a pre-marriage or, relationship, then it could be what's your ideas around, having children, and what would be the roles and responsibilities of having those children?
Yes.
How is that going to be split? Just kind of really breaking down the things that people run into in a marriage that start to create friction and discontent with the other person, and really having a clear knowledge going into it of what you're getting into.
Yeah. And I think all the topics you just hit on are ones that like you said, that can create friction potentially. The finances, how you want to retire, how that looks like, physical intimacy, parenting is a big one.
Yeah, they're all huge.
Yeah, like these are all critical key points.
And so many people don't know this information of even maybe the partner they're with now. Like, does everyone know what their partners? We talked about this with your eulogy. Like, how do you want to retire? Where do you want to live? How much money, do we want to have, and how lean of a income are we prepared to have after retirement? Like these are like really important questions, especially as people get closer to retirement. I'm sure
Well,
they've had them more at that point than they did, in their 20s and 30s.
I would think so, but I know people have been married for, numerous years that have never really approached the type of topics that you're talking about. So even after 15, 20, 25 years of marriage, they're still in the dark together on certain aspects that you're talking about with the expectation.
Right. And there's still so much people can learn about each other no matter how long you've been married. And sometimes it takes vulnerability and transparency to be able to share and to open up, to maybe go a little bit deeper.
Well, the great thing is, it sounds like these are the type of conversations that even if you're already married, you've been married for a number of years, and you talk about the renewal aspect like a contract, these are conversations that you could work into to bring more life or to improve the relationship itself.
Right. I think every relationship every relationship's a work in progress, right? And
Yeah.
people evolve and change. So like if you had this conversation and you set expectations, or you shared at least your expectations, those are going to change over time. Who you are when you're 20, 30 is very different than when you're in your 40s, 50s, or whatever. So it's just but part of that is like setting up those systems for communication so you can continue to exchange this information and really understand your partner. And because how else are you going to meet their needs if they haven't shared them?
That's a great point.
And the same for your needs.
All right. So what are so parenting is one. Obviously, finances is another big one. Physical intimacy. What are some of the other big topics that require expectations that you think are big in a relationship?
Well, those are definitely, the biggest. I think one thing that is important is the level of freedom when people get into a relationship. So when some people are dating, they might get a feel for that, but people may be a little different when they're dating than when they actually are in a committed long-term relationship or married. And some people, I know friends who they want to travel and do their thing with friends. Maybe it's an annual guys trip, it's girls trips, whatever, that they want to have that freedom to do that. And some partners aren't really comfortable with that, right? So if that was important to you, then having those conversations about what basically how many hall passes do you get? Like what's a reasonable amount? Because if somebody's used to being single for a lot of their adulthood and then they get married and they're used to doing whatever they want, they might be taken aback for somebody to say, well, I don't really feel that's fair. You only have 3 weeks of vacation. You're going to take half of it with your friends and not with your family or with me. So having just had that conversation, at least in the beginning, I think is really powerful to establish that. And maybe there's some compromise on both sides.
So really with the expectations then, so it's a matter of you have to, all these different topics that you've listed, you have to be able to identify what are the most important things to you when it comes to this, right? Like some of these topics may not be as important to you as they are to me or vice versa.
Right. And I think just kind of going through, kind of like, a workshop type of process where you just kind of go through, no, this is my answer, but, these are irrelevant these aren't going to be a problem for us. But the things that are a little different, where there's not alignment, to be able to kind of work through those before you get to that point where they become a problem and they haven't been talked about. I think that can really help people kind of get through those kind of humps and hurdles that can add up when you're in a relationship.
All right. So what would be your advice to someone who, like me or somebody else, and I'm sure you have friends like this too, where they know that they need to address some of these important matters that they haven't voiced yet, but they're afraid to do it. How do you encourage someone to break the ice, to have the courage or the transparency to be able to do that?
Yeah. Well, once Relationship Inc. has workshops, I'll let you know. But in the meantime, I think having the ability to just share what you yourself want, that can be a start. Like, these are the things I want to accomplish, before I retire. When I retire, this is what I dream about my life to look like. How about you?
Yeah.
And start there, and hopefully, if you're already married, of course, hopefully you have some alignment. I'm sure at that point, people, like I said, later in life, they probably have talked about some of these things.
Yeah.
But really kind of being open enough and really putting the thought in for yourself, or because some people haven't really thought about what their expectations are. I had a friend who was married for a long time, and they had decided together to have her stay home with the kids. And I don't know that they decided that before they got married, but they were in agreement of that when they started having children. But what they didn't do is talk more about, like, well, how long would we do that? How long would you stay home with the kids?
Yeah.
So once the kids went off to school, he was kind of thinking it would be great for you to have a job, because then we could continue to elevate our lifestyle. And she wasn't really ready for that or keen on that. And so then it took multiple conversations where she was kind of rejecting that. And I can imagine how terrifying it is to get back into the job market if you make that decision to put your career on hold.
Yeah, and you've been
then
out of the job market for 10 or 15
5,
years
10
or
years.
whatever.
I mean, it is intimidating to get back in there. And he did have empathy for that. But that doesn't mean that there's still not this kind of like push of like, okay, now's the time. Let's do this. Let's get you back to work because the kids are at school all day. So that really didn't happen, and then of course the marriage ran its course, and then there's a lot of alimony involved at the end and all these things that he didn't really have control over because, now would it be different if they had agreed on that beforehand? Maybe not, but he would have a better time, I think, having that conversation if they had already talked about it before it happened.
Yeah.
And she would maybe be in a mindset when she was doing it, like, okay, I'm going to go back to work. So I need to make sure I stay on my LinkedIn, or I do the things that I am ready to go back.
Well, it sounds like the workshops that you want to put together are important, because my guess is, I don't know how it works with like premarital counseling, but how many of these important topics or expectations are being expressed before people even get married? My guess is not often, right?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, not to this level. And, some minutia, like, people can, if they love each other, they're going to figure out a way.
Yeah.
But there are very important ways that people live their life very differently. And money is another one that's huge, that people save and spend very differently. And, especially if you had somebody staying home, and it could be either party, right? I know several women who are the breadwinner and the men have stayed home with the kids. But either way, somebody's staying home, what's their spending allotment, of the budget, without feeling like they're spending your money, and having those conversations about how money spent. How I have friends who do a shared account, and then they have private credit cards. They don't share what they spend. Like if he wants to spend, $500 on a bottle of wine and $100 on a cigar, and she wants to buy, expensive clothes, and doesn't matter. You have your money, I have mine, and we pay this much into savings, this much into household expenses. And that works really well for them. Where other people are kind of like scrutinizing, you paid what for what? And, like when people have, especially when you've been independent for a while, you didn't just go from your parents', bank account to, your relationship. You've used to like being able to be in control of your own finances. And it's a hard thing to all of a sudden share that.
Yeah, I know, just based on some of the guys I play golf with, some of my friends, that particular topic right there, I've heard come up just by guys talking about, that's a constant friction point that you were talking about, where the wives will be critical of what's spent over here. Husbands are frustrated because the Amazon guy's showing up at the house every day.
And I know how much some rounds of golf cost, Chad. So, I mean, yeah. And the men are like, you paid how much for that handbag? I mean, if it's not important to you, it does not make any sense to see how somebody else spends money.
Yeah.
But who are we to judge if somebody makes money, their own money, and then they, have like, their buckets filled in the right ways? If that's how they want to spend it, that's their choice. But then again, if you're one income and you're having to spread it out farther because you only have the one income, it does get a little more tricky.
Yeah. That is tough. Are the finances the biggest sticking point for most of the relationships?
Well, what I've read is finances and sex are the big ones.
Finances and sex.
So, yeah, as far as, intimacy, I mean, that's another thing with expectations is, how often?
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, what's to be expected? Variety, you know, climaxing.
Yeah.
Like somebody could say, you know, I expect, you know, to do that every time, and somebody else would be maybe not. You know, so.
Yeah, I would say that just on the golf course, the finances and the intimacy, I just hear, you know, just conversations in passing, but those topics come up a lot. So we'll touch on that. I want to talk about intimacy a little bit. We'll come back. Celeste Trapp is in studio. What Women Want. We're just having a nice little conversation. Hope you're enjoying your afternoon out there. This beautiful sunshine, 4th of July right around the corner. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
Yeah, I don't know how much.
All right, Celeste Trapp in studio. I want to talk about intimacy for a moment because I'm fascinated by this. I went through, I forgot the website, but I did a full test to know what my love language was. And so I got that information. But what I'm wondering is like, can two people who are on opposite ends of the spectrum, like maybe someone's all about words of affirmation, but not into physical touch, and you have someone that's really into physical touch, like, can you take two people that are on opposite ends of that, and can they find a way to make it work together? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, I think so. But now if somebody was like, some people don't really enjoy touch at all.
Yeah.
Like we have clients who don't want a scalp massage, which I find just so hard to believe because it's so amazing.
Like, you want to massage my scalp? Yeah, please.
Yeah. So there's some people, or some people though, it's an intimacy thing too. Like they want only their partner to massage them, not a strange person. So not strange person, but a stranger.
Yeah.
And so I do think though, like with the love languages, there's 5, and not having the same love language is not unusual. The important part of that is just knowing the information.
Yeah, knowing the information and then being able to communicate about
right.
it.
And because generally what we do is we show love the way we want to receive it. So most likely when people say, I don't know my love language, I suggest like, well, how do you like to receive affection and love?
Yeah.
So, or how do you how do you give it? Because that's generally what you also want to receive. And
also how you give affection is often how you want to receive it.
Right. And so knowing that your partner actually wants something different or needs something different is important. And hopefully, if you were with somebody who had acts of service as their love language, but they knew that you needed touch, hopefully that person would care about you and say, I'm going to make an effort, even though my inclination is to do an act of service for you and make you dinner tonight.
Yeah.
I'm going to also, make sure I'm holding your hand on the couch or rub your neck or other things.
Yeah.
Right? So hopefully that's the kind of relationship that you want, right? Is that somebody listens to what your needs are and takes action. Because nothing's worse than when I remember telling a boyfriend many, many moons ago that, it'd be nice if I heard a compliment like once a week or two, just something. And even that he couldn't muster up. And I was just like, God, it was kind of like a slap in the face, right? Because I went, and it's hard to tell somebody that. I told him that, and he did nothing with it. So it was almost worse than just not saying any nice things to me. So, but I do think that you can find a fit with somebody who doesn't share that same love language.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Yeah, I think acts of service, like I would think my Nana was, I think that was her gifts. Like her way of showing that she loved you was by making food, by doing this, doing that. She was always caring for other people.
Yeah.
I think acts of service was
it's
her
a beautiful thing. They're all, who doesn't, all the love languages are amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know people that they seem to have a knack, an ability to communicate words of affirmation when you need it most. And there are people that are very gifted in that, saying the right thing or giving you a compliment or noticing something that no one else noticed, like they see you, like that makes a person feel really good.
Yeah, and we were talking about this on break, like just being seen is really important for women and also for men. Like people want to be recognized for the things they do, appreciated, whether it's their looks or it's something they've done for you or accomplishment they've accomplished. So just being recognized in that way is really powerful. We all show affection in different ways, but if somebody does have the need for more physical touch, being able to verbalize, in ways that you want to be touched, if somebody's rubbing, like my son loves to have his arms, massaged and his hands. And so I just teach him to talk to me about how, how much pressure, how slow, how fast, and just kind of walk him through how to articulate that so that why get a massage from somebody and it's like not what you want.
Yeah.
It's like terrible. Like it could still feel nice, but it like feels so much nicer if you just gave the words around what you were looking for.
Yeah, like when I go in to get a massage, I have no issue saying, oh yeah, deep tissue, please. I want this to be productive. So I express that,
So we offer a massage too. And so I'll instruct coach our therapists that, always be checking in with the client because it's really hard for somebody in the middle of the massage to say, hey, a little bit deeper, please.
Yeah.
But if they come to you, hopefully, your therapist does this as well, and just say, how's the pressure? So that gives you the opportunity to say,
Yeah.
Deeper.
It's right on or deeper or whatever.
Rather than having to offer that and like be critical of their current pressure.
All right. Like usual, the time goes by too fast when you're in studio, Celeste. Thanks for coming in.
It's been fun.
It's good to see you. We'll have more with Celeste in the very near future. Enjoy your evening. Rip City Drive is back tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and then we'll kick off a long weekend with the 4th of July. Big thanks to Brenden Slaughter and our other guest, Jason Fellman, for talking Hairfest, Dave Deckard from BlazersEdge.com, and, of course, the wonderful Celeste Trapp. You guys have a good night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.